All right, welcome back, everybody. And if you just seen final score from the matchup with the DeathWatch Devastating Wounds versus the Necrons Hypercrypt, Necrons 91, DeathWatch 100.
112. I
Rules.
guess it's 100 if we're playing by the rules, but
you know, because we are. So yeah, DeathWatch 100. So first things first, before I forget, this is one of the dice that was left here, and as promised, I will return it to you.
I have won my dice back.
And
Excellent.
then afterwards, I'm going to check and clean up the table, and I'll probably have one left here.
Yeah, it's probably, I probably left
vicious,
3 or 4 more here.
And
so.
the vicious circle continues.
Yeah.
But all right, so let's talk about these lists a bit and go back and forth with it. Let's start. I'd like to start off with the Necrons because they were the ones that lost in this game, and kind of go over the positive and negative. So first of all, scoring 91, only 9 points behind Max.
On the back of a gambit.
On the back of a gambit. That is the key part. In one hand, it's like, oh, cool, you stuck a gambit. Is that even close to where you think I would want to be running this army behind?
Yeah. On this primary mission, if you kill one thing and hold one objective for each turn, you still get 8 points a turn.
Mm-hmm.
You still got another 16 points even if you did not gambit at least, kill
Mm-hmm.
one thing a turn. So you still would have had some kind of score. But I think you can kind of tell that I was just consistently out killing you.
Yep.
So you were never going to get.
I was trying to get in a position where maybe I could hide and maybe I could take away some of that killing potential by going after the gambit and realizing, like you said, I wasn't going to catch up. So I went for that route, and also content purposes. In a tournament in that scenario, yeah, I would have still went after that gambit. Yeah. It put me 4 points down on primary, 5 points down on secondary. Again, I didn't know that my secondaries were going to go that way.
You got the investigate signals when you put everything in the corners.
Yeah, literally,
so
perfect, absolute perfect turn. But being able to draw so many cards this turn too, it kind of put in a position where it was like, okay, I'm not seeing anything good. My secondary game early was really bad. Like I could not get any cards that really I could. I can score any secondary with this
you were
list.
0 on turn 1, right? Even though you're able to
pretty. Yeah, I could. I mean, and that was the thing, is like the ones that I got on turn 1, I just couldn't do it. Like I went first, bad, real bad. I needed to go second. I went first, and I got terrible secondaries right off rip. So right off the bat,
and 0 kills.
And 0 kills because I couldn't see. I couldn't see anything, and anything I could see, I didn't have weapons to really be able to go at them. I could do some chip shots at best, and then you would turn around and absolutely annihilate whatever I chip shot at you. So that was not very good. And that put me behind the 8 ball right there. But again, only 9 points back off the gambit. To your point, kill 1 unit, hold 1 objective, 8 points. I would have gotten 16 into the end. I would have lost 14 points versus the gambit because of 30 points versus that. So I still would need to make up the 14 points. And that's honestly going to be my biggest takeaway is, where do I need to do to get those 14 points back? And I think it comes into, there's not, one of the things that you especially see with like Marines is whatever you don't put Oath of Moment into becomes kind of rough and wishy-washy on if you do or do not kill. And I don't really have anything to be super reliable behind. The Locusts were decent, but not great. The Heavies were probably better in that aspect. Losing the 1 squad turn 1 sucked. But
that was the anti-infantry one, wasn't that?
That is true too.
Yeah, they wouldn't have done a whole lot of work into most of my list. Even my infantry are all T6 anyways. What's the strength on them?
They're strength 6.
Yeah, so it'd still be forced to win.
Yeah, but they were, but still losing the bodies early was tough. I think that the Scarabs were kind of just a late addition, and I don't think they're really necessary. And the Sentinel was kind of out of place. So I think that right there's a good 240 points that I could go into something else. I did still like the Locusts and what they did, but now in hindsight and looking at how some of their abilities work with being able to shoot and reroll hits in general, I could probably just give them the automatic deep strike and let them just run on the deep strike wagon most of the game. So I think that's one thing that I'm taking away from this. I think the Sentinel and the what was the other guy? The Sentinel and the Scarabs can come out. There was a lot of times I was looking at them, like I kept picking up the Ophidians, and they weren't like I just kept picking them up and just putting them back down behind walls. Some of that was poor secondaries.
Well, part of that is you can between the two, Ophidians and the 3 you can pick up. You're picking up 5 every turn. That's more. That's actually more than what you probably need to pick up. You know,
Potentially,
it's so many. Now by late game when you're running out of assets, it might make more sense to have those Ophidians there for free. But yeah, early game you're picking up 5 units,
and that
you don't have 5 places to put them.
And that might be another thing.
And that's just going to happen. Yeah.
Drop down to 1 squad of Ophidians, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, instead of having 3, drop down to 1. Still maybe invest in the Scarabs because they're cheap, and I can use them for secondaries and stuff like that. But it definitely, like we said, going into this matchup, it was definitely overhaul into stuff and then see where to dial it back. Probably can dial back on the Ophidians, if not even just drop the Ophidians entirely. I think maybe 1 squad would still be good to be able to have that free extra in there, but that's kind of where that fell.
I think if we can put another squad of Wraiths and 6-man squad of Wraiths in there, it'll be pretty good. Because I really intentionally, once they got onto that objective over there, I stayed away from them because I know they're going to bog me down. They're a tar pit. So I tried to stay away from as much as possible. So I think if you can drop some other stuff and have a second, it's just going to give you more ability to go out there and control more objectives. Because that's what you need to do. You're not going to kill more than me in this mission. No. But you needed to hold more objectives for me to score 8 on progress. And I think,
and that was something initially that the Sentinel was supposed to be his job, and then as the game progressed, it didn't work out that way. So yeah, it might be maybe another squad of Wraiths, and maybe go a little bit of a cheaper route and throw in some Lich Guard with shields. That'll be a little bit cheaper for a 5-man. They wouldn't be able to get the Feel No Pain, but I could at least have 5-man guys with a 4-up invuln inherently just sitting on objectives. So there's some options there and some stuff that I want to look into. Definitely can dial it back from how much I was going into mission win, and definitely dial it back a little more into get some damage out there. I think the Sentinel is the first to go from this detachment for my play, and the Scarabs will probably be the first things to go. I will still keep the Spiders in there. I still love the Spiders. This matchup, they didn't do very much, but they didn't also not do things. Like, they were still present. They were still vicious. The 4-up invuln on them was great. A lot of things worked out really well for them. Yes, there is still something to be said about doing a monolith sort of build into this, but I mean, I don't think the monolith having a monolith on the table would have just given you more of a focal point of where to go.
I'd have loved it. Yeah.
This way it was at least.
I mean, I'll get to show off my dev wound ability there by saying, "Oh, I'm going to oath and tome that thing and reroll all wounds into that." That would be a treat for me.
Yep. And like you said, showing off the dev wounds, I think we can segue over into the DeathWatch, because reliably, while I got a 91 out of Necrons off of a Gambit, which is the big takeaway, it is a Gambit. Like I roll a 5, I roll a 6, I roll a 7. We're sitting at a 61. If I would have not gone for the Gambit and continued down that path, let's say I kill a unit each turn and I hold 1 objective each turn and I score 16 points. So then we're looking at what, 77? So I'm going to get 77, which realistically, that's still not too bad. That's not completely bad for how much got obliterated, but I need to be able to, I gotta push that dial a little further. And Scarabs out, Ophidian maybe drop down to 1, take the Sentinel out and kind of tweak over there, because the Sentinel didn't do anything.
Yeah.
The Scarabs, and the Scarabs weren't bad. You know, if I'm going to keep the Spiders in there, I could invest completely around the Scarabs and use them. They weren't terrible, but I feel like if I put too many of them in there, then in that scenario, you can actually just start shooting at them and just watch them disappear. So that's kind of, but again, that's where I'm at with that. Is those are the units that I think are not really going to make the cut. Glance over there. I think that's really about it. I do still like the Locust, the Destroyers. I do like the Heavies. I like what they can do. So yeah, I think it's just going to be taking the Scarabs, the Sentinel, and maybe 1 squad of Ophidians out and seeing what I can't get in there. With that being said, now let's segue over and talk about the winners of tonight's game. Scoring 100 points, over 100 points, which is very nice. Again, like you said, this is a mission specifically that, you know,
it's a high-scoring mission.
It is.
Both the mission and the mission special rule.
Very much
because you can consistently score well. And even I scored a kill on turn 1. So turn 1, I hate 8 primary.
8 points, easy.
Yeah,
8 points easy.
Yeah, so it may cause a big swing there. And so it's just a natural, the combination of the mission and the mission special rule just leads to high scoring games. But I was still very happy with how everything performed. What I think I might change about the list is the dreadnoughts are good and durable, but what I wanted to be able to do was to get eyes on good targets. So I might build some more Terminators with assault cannons.
I was going to say,
drop the dreadnoughts, do 3 squads of Terminators with assault cannons. It's basically the same number of shots, and actually take a couple more of the ATVs with the Gatling, the Onslaught Gatling cannons, because I like their mobility. They're cheap; they can get out there if I need them. But then they can also contribute just by putting out 8 shots that have the Dev Wound ability on them. So,
can you put the lieutenant in this list? The guy that was able to. I remember in our last game that we played when you had the rope. When I played my AdMech, you had your lieutenant who was able to be at a happy midpoint with lone op, not get shot at, could move upfield, it could move onto it, do all that stuff. Could you put him in this detachment without losing too much?
Yeah.
I really think
he just doesn't have devastating wounds.
Fair, but I think that he would do really well here. I think that he would. I would definitely say, if he was between him and another ATV, I would go with him first.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely has the ability to kind of control an area and pop in and out, so he's able to.
What's the point difference between the Redemptors and the Terminators, roughly?
Terminators are 10 points more. They're 210 for DeathWatch Terminators. They're more expensive than, I think, regular Marine Terminators. 185, I believe, for 5-man. But the DeathWatch get 3 heavy weapons, so I can take 3 assault cannons in each squad. So there is some, but I have 1 Terminator squad and 3 dreadnoughts. So I drop all 3 dreadnoughts, have 3 Terminator squads. I can play with the points a little bit, but there's some room to wiggle around there.
Well, also on top of it too, the Tome of Ectoclades, you just need it on a character.
No, I need it on a captain. It has to be on a captain of the Watchmaster.
So can you just put a captain with the Terminators and drop that other squad as well?
Yeah, but they would have to be on the board in the command phase. So I can't deep strike those Terminators.
But
they'd have to already be on the board.
Squads, then 1 can be in reserve, 2 can be in reserve, and that 1 can use the Teleportarum strat.
Nope, because they pick it up at the end of your turn, and then they're in deep strike. They're not on the table. That's kind of the challenge of the Tome, is that that's why I did the Company Heroes. They worked pretty well because they were tough, they were durable. They took a big shoot in the face from your heavy or from your destroyers. So.
That's true. That's true. And I mean, I'm looking at different ways for you to be able to get other things like that other ATV in there.
Yeah. No, I think I can. I'll play around with the list and report back. Might not play it again right away, but I'm pretty happy, especially because I built this list to deal with the very aggressive things that move up the table and come right at you. Like I've dealt with recently. I played in a tournament and dealt with Chaos Space Marines and just squads of Chosen and Rhinos. It's like they each have 3 wounds. There's 10 of them. There's 30 wounds there. And if you're shooting them, they're still going to make armor saves. And if you're shooting with 2 damage things, you're not getting great efficiency because it takes 4 wounds to kill a 3-wound character with 2 damage weapons. So I think into that, anything that's more aggressive that's going to move up the table, this will be even better. Because I didn't really get to pop off my dev wounds. I kept the tally, actually. We did 36 dev wounds throughout the game. But by my math, if I had everything on the table and popped Tome of Ectoclades, I should be able to do that many in a single turn. Not counting the pickup. So but it was a good test of the list to see it was still viable without having a big threat right up the middle that all my units can shoot at.
No, most definitely. And like you said, a lot of it now is coming down to the tweaking. It was to see, okay, this definitely is efficient. The damage is there. Now it's a matter of tweaking to just try and increase that efficiency while still to get you a secondary game. Is more what you're looking at right now. And just having the Terminators alone in Deep Strike really increases your secondary game tenfold. Units that can land on objectives, score those extra points, and complete secondaries and stuff like that. And then, like you said, with the points left over, because each of the squads are 10 points more. It's 10 points more for the Terminators over the Dreads.
Yeah, it's 210 for the Terminators, 200 for the Dreads.
So you drop all 3 Dreads, and you're losing 20 points, basically. And then you put that Lieutenant in there, and then he can do that as well. No,
like I said, I already have 1 Terminator squad in the list. So
right. So you're dropping 3.
So if I drop the 3
to get the 2,
Dreadnoughts at 600 points, and then I add another 400 20 points of, so I have 180 points to play with.
Right, and that's what I was saying. You'd only be losing.
Mhm.
You take basically, switch that over to it, and then you just cut 20 points off of Redemptor, and that's how many points you'd have left.
Yeah.
And I think the Lieutenant would be an excellent addition,
Mhm.
just for what he does.
Well, I can put the Calidus back in the list too, because I didn't have a Calidus today. So.
Calidus as well would be a good idea as well. I just really liked what that Lieutenant could do for the fact that he could just stand there, and then he had so much mobility to be able to move up, fall back, move there, move there.
He's lone operative, and if you've moved within 6 inches of him or within 9 inches of him, he gets a free move out of the way. So.
Because part of what I was thinking ahead of time, I was like, man, your list would probably do really well from the librarian infiltrator strat, where it's like you can't deep strike within 12, but then you can't shoot them unless you're within 12, and be able to have a unit like that just kind of go dangle on the outside objective and go, okay, this is going to be my unit that's going to hold this objective and do anything I need out here for secondaries, and then you just try and avoid some of the secondaries that you can't score, some that in that aspect, and play it off that. But I do like the idea with the ATVs, because again, that's something that you could, for behind enemy lines. You know, that was one that I don't think you saw behind enemy lines. I think that was still in the deck, actually.
Yeah, I positioned for it because I deep strike my Terminators over here before I pulled that, anticipating that I might pull that in the last turn because I hadn't, but I never did. I don't think I got captured.
It's funny because that was actually the same reason that I pulled back and put everything in the corner, because I noticed that when I picked up and I didn't have engage on all fronts or investigate signals, I was thinking in my head, I'm like, man, I pulled 3 cards. One of those is probably going to be next turn. I was keeping my fingers crossed that I was going to get them both. I did, and that was a 13-point swing and a 13-point turn, which then again, like, also helps say the reason of why I was able to catch up so closely. Yes, the Gambit was a random loof. It is part of the game. It is something that could happen. You know, if you had one bad turn, or if you dropped 10 points on one turn and you finished at a 90, something somewhere happened and I was able to shield out a bit, and you finished at a 90, that Gambit is next thing you know, a 1-point win. And that was like, I looked at it, I'm like, I cannot catch up with you on primary. I'm going to score 16 points. It's going to be it, maximum. Yeah. I get maybe one turn. I do something silly and score hold more than you somehow, some way. But with how much damage you had, you were able to continuously put it in a position where the most I was going to ever hold was 2 objectives. That was it. I was not going to hold ever 3 objectives into my turn. I could have hit the table and held every single objective at a couple points during the game. I could not have held every objective till my command phase. Yeah. Because of the acts of like 1 CP, I land on this objective, even though you're close, I'm 3 inches away. And I could do that, and I could hold all the objectives. And I could have possibly stopped you from having 4 points. But then again, boom, 8 points every turn.
I get 8 points and kill him more.
8 points. And and I wasn't. And there were some turns that I wasn't even really efficiently able to kill units. Like, I guaranteed. I could kill some stuff, but I was whittling down quick. And that's where I got to look into is I definitely need something that's going to be able to push back a little more. The wraiths are very durable, not pushing back as much. And I have to look at that. This may be a time where I finally unharness the chains and unleash the Catans.
Oh, yeah. You haven't played them yet.
I have not played a single Catan. I feel like personally that the Catans are a obvious powerhouse. And so that's why and it does fall into a sense. It's like, oh man, I spent all these points on, and then I look at how much other stuff I could spend. Now, like I said, I drop the Scarabs, I drop the Sentinel, and I mean, I think that's almost points for Nightbringer. Yeah. And having Nightbringer pick up off the table and come back on a table edge and then do Gaze of Death into something and be in threat range. Yeah, that's pretty rough. Reduce damage plus feel no pains. I mean, heck, maybe I'll just bring 3 Catans and float around
that's kind of what I built this list for, though. You reduce damage. It doesn't matter if my dev wounds are 1. It doesn't matter if you have a 4 pinball. You're not reducing 1 damage.
I do.
You got to feel no pain, so that'll factor into it. But
and the fact of being able to hide.
Yeah.
Where the Tesseract Vault can't hide.
Nope. It can't.
The Monolith really can't hide.
No.
Catans, I could hide them. I could hide them and be able to go, okay, you are going to hit me, but you're only going to hit me with this part of your army, and I'm going to be able to continue to move and force you to have to dedicate more of a turn over here. And while you're dedicating a turn over here, I'm doing stuff and scoring points over here. I probably should have actually been more aggressive with the Wraiths to middle. Once I took that objective and had that, instead of sitting over there, I probably should have gotten like Ophidians on that objective to deal with that and get the Wraiths in the middle, because the Wraiths were just, you literally had to put your entire army into them and have me roll terrible on saves. I really did roll bad on those saves. It was horrible. Like, it was, you rolled like 3 and it's like, oh, you did 3 single damage. Okay, let me roll 3 ups. Okay, 1, 2, 2, 1. And I literally, like, it was like the 4th set of shooting, and I just looked at you. It was like, you realize I have not made a single save, 3 up or otherwise. Yeah. So, but that's going to happen. I do feel a little behind the 8 ball with the damage point, because there really is like nothing excessive that I can do for damage. Once I picked up the destroyers and the heavy destroyers, I knew that was, everything else is mostly chip damage. So it eventually do work onto me, but I knew it was going to shut down your primary damage. I mean, those heavy destroyers with the flat 6 damage were ridiculous. They had to go. That sucks. I missed like all 3 of them. 1, 1, 2. 1, 1, 2. Oh yeah, but with the CP reroll did manage to wound. Didn't wound. No. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna do some tweaking to it. Then that might be another thing, is like if I drop those things and drop the Ophidians, because literally I drop the Ophidians, it's like 100 points. I could slap 2 solo Locust Heavies in there, and without having a lot of, like, not doing a lot of strats and other stuff like that, I might. Oh no, I have one, the big squad, so I put in 1. I could put in 2 Locust, a 2-man squad of Locust Heavies. But I might consider that, because especially like with this and being able, like if we go into an infantry-based matchup with this list, I have a lot more efficiency. But going into that much armor and that many vehicles and stuff, it's a lot harder to deal with. I have an easier time slowing down and doing work against Terminators than I do against the Dreadnoughts. The Dreadnoughts, in a lot of scenarios, could get bogged down against me. Just because, the Dreadnoughts only have 5 attacks. Exactly. That was exactly what I was going to say. They can shoot out of combat or into combat, which is different from the Terminators. But the Terminators would get other 3 attacks. Many more attacks. They get 15 attacks for 5 of them with Power Fists and Thunderhammers. So they would clobber. So it's a different beast. Like, while I can stop the Terminators, I can slow them down physically. The Dreadnoughts are still able to shoot out and do damage elsewhere, but I can bog that Dreadnought down and not get it, and be able to make it not get anywhere. And the Terminators, it's a different animal, but I feel like I can do better. I can deal with this list. I can deal with Terminators better than I could deal with Dreadnoughts. Now, again, back to you. Let's close this out with the DeathWatch here. What would be something that you would be worried about running into? Because there's a lot of different things. Like, this was a more just somebody getting the drop on me and shooting me first. Tal might be able to hop in there and do more work. Like I said, one of the nice things about this list is the damage output component doesn't rely on CP, so I can use all my CP. Like I did when you first shot the repulsor, I used smoke and armor contempt, and that just really slows down the amount of damage you can put on those. So I can play very defensively with my CP. So I don't really know, because I specifically built it for like the Chaos Space Marine matchup. It's tough to tell with Eldar, because it's been a while since I played against Eldar. But I feel like this would do really well in most of the durable things that are out there right now. A 20-man brick of Crusaders, Black Templar Crusaders, the 5-up Feel No Pain. Just the number of dev wounds I can do into them, and they can't really hide because it's a huge brick. Once they're out there on the table, there'll be the regular wounds that get into them too, in addition to the dev wounds. And even with their Feel No Pain, it's still the volume of shots is going to chew through them. So one thing that I think you would struggle with, looking at like the different armies, like when you talk about that, like the Marines and the Marine shooting, like you said, you're not CP intensive, so you can spend the CP to protect some of these vehicles and stuff like that, and you're able to teleportarium to get around those situations late in the game. For like the Space Marines, you go down to the Gene Stealer Cult, you can Overwatch and spray into and crush some of those. Eldar can get rough with you, but the thing is that Eldar don't like that strength 6. So anything that's strength 6, you're wounding stuff on 2s, they're not going to like that very much. The Shadow Weavers might be it'll just annihilate Eldar infantry. Artillery might be a little rough. Some of their vehicles might be a little rough, and something that you might want to play around against to get that feel. I definitely feel there. One thing that I think could give, this is a double let me get to both sides of this. Space Wolves. However, I think the answer for you in the Space Wolf matchup is to be able to have units that can utilize runes, like, infantry, like, Terminators.
Right.
So I feel like making that change will actually help you in the Space Wolves matchup, because the Wolves, one thing that they're going to struggle with is runes and getting around buildings and stuff like that. And you're able to pick up and teleport around or go through walls with infantry. But if you're on their playing field with the dreadnoughts and that stuff, now they're going to be doing that, going around corners, and they're going to be you're meeting them on their terms, the way they want it to be. But otherwise, I don't think that there's too much that would really be crazy. I mean, I could run my Canoptic Harvest that I was running before and play that into you. A lot more damage output out of there, a lot more hate that I'm able to bring and that stuff.
Oh, you definitely missed the rerolls today. There was definitely times you missed the ability to reroll things.
I missed I need to look into the characters more and start dialing back into that more. So while I love the spiders, they not having the rerolls hurt a lot. It really drop their efficiency. I didn't have any way to boost them to even just the 2-up like I did in the Awakened Dynasty before.
Yeah. Also, you weren't, other than one time you shot into a 6-man aggressor unit, you weren't getting blast on your, which always adds a lot, because, for...
my spider dice were terrible.
Yeah,
today.
your number
my
of shots was pretty low. There's only one time where you had a solid roll. A lot of times...
And I was going into like a dreadnought.
Yeah, like 8 on 4 dice. So
I liked it, but all in all, I do like the Hypercrypt Legion.
It's the first time we played it, so I think it merits more play, because it's tough to deal with everything. You get 5 units picking up and coming down every turn. You can do so many redundancies in certain areas of that.
Yeah, I would definitely play this again. I want to continue moving through all the detachments and see which one. This one, I will say this much: I do still like Grey Knights better, as far as this is concerned. Grey Knights have more defense.
They're more durable. Damage output's a little less, but in this case, when I picked up, like I said, when I picked up a couple of your destroyers, your damage output went way down. There's a lot of AP nothing, some dead wounds here, some AP 1, but then armor contempt.
Yeah, you did. But again, I scored really high. I mean, it was off a it was off a gambit, but that is a piece and a part of the game now that could happen. Without it, 61. What did we say roughly? It was like 61 plus 16, so we said like 77. So even 77 in a loss getting tabled isn't that bad.
Yeah, not bad.
With some tweaking, I could probably with some tweaking and a couple good kills, I could turn that into an 80. So I feel like a couple tweaks I could get this list running. But I want to go into some of the other detachments as well. I want to see what they could do and see what I could play into. I had, you got the I think it's like Obscenus detachment, which is basically the character-based higher court detachment, the Silent King. And I definitely want to get the Silent King on the table like that. So I think I kind of want to go that route. We still have the Annihilation Legion, which I've been very down on the Annihilation Legion, but after what Castle and Robots did, I'm very curious to see it.
Yeah.
How about you? What do you got on the spectrum that you want to mess around with? Other than DeathWatch and the this Devastating Wounds list.
Yeah, like I said, I want to try this some more, swapping out Terminators for Dreadnoughts, because I think that'll be give me more mobility with deep striking Terminators. Other than that, we got this team tournament coming up, and I'm kind of liking everything I'm trying out for it, whether it's Votann or Death Guard, maybe even Chaos Knights. I don't know. I'm building a few more Chaos Knights. I don't have a whole army yet, but I've got about 1,000 points worth of them done. So, no, I'm liking all 3 of the main armies I play right now: Votann, Death Guard, and DeathWatch. So,
well, I'll tell you what. We have some time, and we'll see what everything comes about. I would not mind running there's a couple things, and actually, let us know here on channel. Do you guys want to see this Devastating Wound list again? If so, next week we can run. There's 2 options: DeathWatch versus Grey Knights, where I play my teleporting list, my 2,000 point of it, my competitive one, my one that I've done very, 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 very well with at GTs. Or I'll go into AdMech again, run the Castle and Robots, run my new. I started going into and tweaking some stuff, and I have some very interesting ideas for the cohort Cybernetica. So I can run one of those two against you in the DeathWatch. Or would you rather see the Votann return to the table? If the Votann return, I will play Necrons and I will do the character-based detachment.
Mm-hmm.
So let us know in the comments section. I'm not, whichever one we have the most of, that's what we'll do. So it's either going to be DeathWatch Admech, DeathWatch Grey Knights, or Votann Necrons character-based detachment. Sound like a plan?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Sounds good to me.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight because we need to go to bed because we're old men. Truth hurts, right?
DJ, it's like 1 o'clock. Even the kids are in bed.
Oh, it's early still. I'm up to like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And the kids are not in bed. I just heard one of them running around. So it's early. I still got like 2 hours before I'll sleep. So, all right, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.